Hello everybody, in today's video I'm talking about real estate contract cancellations, and if you are thinking of buying or selling a home in the near future, you may want to watch this video because I'm talking about some of the reasons that real estate contracts get canceled, when you are able to cancel a contract and get your money back versus when you are not able to get your escrow deposit back, and also I'm going to go over the statistics and talk about some of the reasons why real estate contracts could get canceled. My name is Dawn Dickinson. The channel is Living in Northern Arizona. I am a licensed real estate agent, so if you ever have a question about buying or selling a home in Arizona, my contact information is always in the description below, and if you give me a call, text, or an email, I will get back to you. So today is New Year's Eve, and I just got notice late last night that one of my contracts has been canceled by the buyers, and I'm going to have to deliver that bad news to the seller as soon as it's late enough for me to make a phone call. So that is pretty sad. Now I'm going to give you some statistics. I typically in a normal year might get 2 cancellations out of 10, 12, 14 contracts. So typically a normal year, I might get 15 to 20% cancellation rate. And that's probably been consistent over the last 8 years or so. But this year, 2024, was a little bit strange. I've actually had 8 cancellations out of 26 contracts. So that is a rate of about, 32% cancels versus 69% that actually closed, 4 times higher than a normal year in my my real estate business. And I, been trying to reflect, why was that so high this year? Now I did do some, I always watch real estate news. I noticed back in July, everybody was posting videos of the abnormally high amount of cancellations that were occurring around the time of the summer, like June, July. But for me, it actually consistently happened throughout the year, and a lot of people were blaming, high prices, but that wasn't the reason any of mine canceled. So I'm just going to walk through today of those 8 reasons, just give you an idea of why they were canceled and if I thought they were realistic or versus not realistic. And I'm going to give you a little bit of data on when it's appropriate to cancel a contract. So before I begin, I want you to know that typically on a given year, I will get 2 contracts canceled, but most of the time, those 2 contracts, if it's a buyer, they will typically come back within the next 12 months and buy another property. Or if it's a seller and the contract cancels, I typically are able to come back and sell the home to the next buyer. But this year, I've had, like I say, 8 cancellations, and only 2 of those clients that canceled have come back and done another purchase. Now, again, some of those contracts happened in the last few months, so they could still come back and purchase another home. Some of them have been on the selling side also, and I have a chance to resell those homes to somebody else. So before I go into a lot of detail on why some people have chosen to cancel contracts this year in 2024, I want to give you a little bit of background. If you are buying a house, especially in Arizona, the residential purchase contract has built in what we call a due diligence period, which is basically your inspection period. In Arizona, the default is 10 days, but I typically write in 12 just in case something happens, especially if it's over the holidays. It might take a little longer to get inspections, but 10 days default in Arizona. Could be different in other states where you are able to do a home inspection and any other inspections that you might want on the property that you are purchasing. And if you find anything you don't like in the home inspection, you could choose to cancel the contract right away, or you could choose to ask the seller to fix some of the items that you find in the inspection, and if they don't, you could cancel it. But again, there is a built-in period where it's very easy for a buyer to cancel a contract. Now, ironically, this year where I've had a record number of home cancellations, I didn't have any of them canceled because of a bad home inspection. So that is unusual because that's probably the biggest reason that cancellation cancels get contract is things that are found in the home inspection report that a buyer doesn't like, and ultimately that results in the contract being canceled and the buyer able to get their escrow deposit back. Now, other things are quite common, like there's a financing contingency if you're having a loan and you lose your job and you can't get your mortgage. That's a common reason that contracts get canceled, but every year there are different things. Those are just two examples that I'm going to give you. So before I get too deep in the reasons why some people may choose to cancel a real estate contract, I want you to know that nobody likes it when a contract is canceled, because that means that everybody who has worked on it, which would be the listing agent, the buyer's agent, the buyer and the seller, the title company, the brokerage, transaction coordinators, everybody on the team of the title company, the loan officer, everybody on the loan officer's team, all those people have done work and they have not gotten paid for it, and they won't get paid for it. So it's sad when it happens, and sometimes I am delivering news to a seller that we've canceled the contract and they're very upset, they're crying, or very emotional. And then sometimes I deliver news to a listing agent if my buyer cancels and they're mad, they're chewing me out like I did this on purpose. No, nobody likes it when we get a contract canceled. However, I would much rather cancel a contract for you than coerce you into going through with the contract if you're not comfortable, or having you purchase a home that you're not happy with, you're not comfortable with, or even if you have a creepy feeling that this isn't the right deal from you, I will gladly cancel the contract for you. So that being said, I just want you to know that, yeah, we don't like it when you cancel, but sometimes it happens, and most agents know that there will be a certain percentage, like I say, usually 15 to 20% of their deals will end up cancel, and they should have the stomach to be able to handle that, or they're not going to be a good agent. So that being said, here are some of the reasons that I've had cancellations this year. Let me get into it a little bit. My first cancellation of the year was actually a canceled listing agreement, and what I perceive this as an overpriced listing agreement. This is a lesson that I've learned that I'm not going to do anymore, because you have a listing agreement when you're ready to put a home up for sale. So you're representing the seller at this point, you sign a listing agreement and you work out the price. Now, before we do that, I always run very detailed comps, comparables. We look at other houses that are similar in the area that have sold, and you come up with a recommended price. So my first listing of the year, or canceled contract, was actually from a listing the prior year where I thought a house should be listed at a certain price. Let's just throw out some similar numbers. Like, I was thinking it was worth $550, the seller's thinking it's worth $630, and so he is saying, I want you to list it at $630. Where at that point I should have said, we're just too far off, I'm not going to list it. But I had the conversation like, all right, we'll list it at $630, and in a few weeks, if we're getting no interest, let's lower the price. And he said, okay. So if I didn't get that in writing, which I didn't, I can't force him to lower the price. So hence, I am taking a listing that is dramatically higher than I'm thinking it's worth. And of course, all this came down was there was a very similar home that sold for that price, but yet the home had been remodeled, and the one I'm selling looks like, 1984 hot tub time machine came through, and that's why I thought it was worth less. So, a year goes by, I'm coordinating showings, I'm getting pictures, I'm letting other agents show it, I'm showing it, I am handling offers. I get several offers on this place that the seller rejects because, again, it's not the price that he wants. And after 6-8 months, he calls me and cancels it because I'm not selling it fast enough, even though he said he had plenty of time, didn't want to lower the price. And again, I recommend we lower the price maybe, 30 times. Then he hires another agent who gets him to lower the price $50,000, $60,000. Eventually it sells for less than one of the verbal offers that had been turned down. So number one, overpriced listing, and I am now just decided I'm not ever taking a listing that's way more than I think it's worth. Second category, so that's 1 out of 8, representing 12.5% of my cancellations for the year. Now the second category I'm putting, this does happen sometimes. A person goes into contract and they look around, they do a little bit of research, and it's a fixer-upper, say, and they're like, well, this is way more work or way more money than I want to spend, and they cancel. I've had 2 of those this year, representing 25% of my cancellations. Now, one of them I would say is justified. I had one that, again, I will gladly cancel it for you, but I wouldn't have recommended canceling this one. And if the buyer would have maybe done a little bit of work, invested maybe $5,000 to $20,000, could have suddenly been worth $75,000 more than the contract price, but this person got scared and canceled the contract. So again, I think they would have been better to stick with it, but again, that's that person's prerogative. Okay, so I had another deal this year fall out because of financing. Now, thankfully, that deal, the buyer was able to get a different home, and it wasn't that the buyer wasn't qualified to finance, it was actually the property wasn't qualified for FHA financing. That does happen sometimes. Usually it doesn't happen on like day 40 of escrow. It's very sad when you don't find out very late that there was an issue, but I had one of those this year, so 12% dropping out because of financing. There was one deal that went through with one of my partner agents that was canceled because of a poor water quality test. Now, being in a rural area, I often have transactions, purchases, sales for homes that are on a well, and if we're doing a purchase of a well property, I recommend you doing a water test. Now, sometimes the water quality comes back bad, but usually we rectify it by putting in a filter. In this particular case, the seller did put in an expensive filter and was able to clear the water test with any contaminants, but the buyer still freaked out and canceled the contract. That happens sometimes. So poor water quality test was, again, 12% of my cancellations this year. Now, I had 2 deals fall through this year because of an unfulfilled buyer contingency sale. So what that means, basically, too, that 25% of my canceled deals is sometimes a buyer will want to purchase a home, but they have to sell their home before they can do the deal, right? So they put a contingency on their purchase, and sometimes it gets accepted. I've had 2 of those this year get accepted, and after the allotted amount of time came, those buyers were not able to sell their home in other states. Now, again, I really don't like to write a offer with a contingency on a home that's listed for sale but not in escrow yet, but a lot of times the buyers are so excited about the deal, they really want it, and so I'll write the contract, and sometimes the listing agent will take the contract. I definitely shy away from taking the contingency where the home hasn't sold. If a home is in escrow, that's a different story, pretty good chance of it going through, but if it's listed for sale but hasn't sold, to me that has a high risk of cancellation, and I don't usually like to do those. But again, if I don't write the contract, your chance of getting that house is 0, right? So maybe it's 50% that you'll get it if you've got a contingency because your house has to sell, but it's going to be 0 if I don't write it at all. So again, I don't like writing those, but I will if the buyer really wants it. They found a house they love and they're hoping that they can sell their house. Another sale canceled this year was because of a solar panel lease, a solar system on a lease. This is unfortunate. I do see a lot of problems with homes that have solar panels on them, especially if they're a lease and not owned. Now, I personally have solar panels on my house, and they are owned and not leased, but it does make me nervous because I see now a lot of people don't want a house with the solar panel lease on it, or if the owned system has a loan, they don't want to transfer it. So I recommend, if you are a listing agent listing a house with a solar panel lease on it, that put all of the lease information on the listing so the buyer can review all that before we go into contract. This particular deal, there was some information that came later during the escrow process that if it had been revealed up front, we wouldn't have even made the offer. So this is something that could have been avoidable, but of course, the buyer had the total right to cancel based on not liking the terms of the solar lease. Now, there was a couple of deals where maybe these reasons were given, but I don't really know the real reason that happens over time. Didn't really have, maybe one of my deals closed this year where I wasn't really sure if the reason given was the right reason, the real reason. But again, you know, that happens. They have the right to cancel within that inspection period. And again, with the listing contract canceling, a lot of agents will write in that if you cancel, that the seller will owe them money for like taking the pictures or time, a certain amount of money as like a retainer. I don't usually do that, but that can happen. It may cost you to cancel your listing contract. And a lot of the ones that we talked about in most of these, I think all but one, the buyers were in their legal right to cancel and they got their escrow deposit back. One time they were not legally able to get the deposit back because they were violating it because the seller had actually met their part of the deal and the buyer backed out anyhow. So those are some of the reasons you might expect or you might anticipate that you could cancel a deal or that your deal might be canceled if you're seller. So I just wanted to share that with you. Again, my name's Dawn Dickinson, the channel Living in Northern Arizona. I teach videos every single week about real estate. A lot of them are about the Northern Arizona towns, and then a lot of the videos are just general real estate topics. If you find any of this information helpful, I would appreciate it if you would give me a thumbs up, a like, and consider subscribing to the channel because I do post informative videos every week, and I would love to see you back here on my channel next week. Happy New Year, everyone. I hope 2025 is a great year for everyone, and I hope to see you back here on the channel again next week.